You know that deep down, almost primal need to be in control of your life, that feeling of wanting to steer the ship, to be the author of your own story. It feels so good, so comforting. But what if I told you it's one of the most fragile illusions we live by? So what happens when that illusion shatters? Today, we're going to dive into how real, true power might be found not in gripping tighter, but in the terrifying yet totally liberating act of letting go.
See, most of us, this is our default setting. We really see ourselves as the captains of our own ship. We spend our lives meticulously planning our careers, our families, our futures. We're taught from a young age that willpower is the engine, right? And that self-determination is the final destination. We just believe, deep down, that if we put in enough effort, we can command the seas of our own life.
But what happens when the storm hits? What happens when a sudden, unexpected gale just rips the helm right out of our hands and shows us that maybe, just maybe, we were never truly in command in the first place? Well, this is where the real journey begins.
And that storm, it can be absolutely anything. It could be a sudden diagnosis from a doctor, an unexpected job loss, or even just the slow, painful end of a relationship you thought would last forever. It's that precise moment when all our carefully drawn maps suddenly become useless, and the shore we were so confidently sailing towards, it just disappears from view.
So what's our first reaction when all this chaos hits? We double down, right? We scramble for a new grip on the wheel, believing that if we just try harder, think smarter, or push with more force, we can somehow wrestle back control from the storm. It's our instinct to try and overpower the very forces that are showing us just how powerless we really are.
And this brings us to a really crucial insight from the theologian Miroslav Volf. He points out that genuine, deep transformation rarely happens when we're winning, when we're feeling on top of the world. No, it happens in the free fall. It's in our failures, in our moments of powerlessness, that the person we thought we were, well, that person begins to come apart.
And that identity, the one that's crumbling, it's often called the false self. It's the version of us that's built on our job title, our successes, our reputation, all the things we think we manage and control. So when that entire construction falls apart, man, it feels like dying. And you know what? In a way, it is. It's the death of an illusion, and that makes space for something far more real to finally emerge.
But here's the thing. This moment of crisis, it isn't just a problem that you have to solve. It's an invitation. It's a call to explore a completely different way of being, a way that our culture often really misunderstands, the art of surrender. It's all about a shift in posture. Think about it. We spend so much of our lives with a clenched fist, resisting, controlling, protecting ourselves. But a clenched fist can't receive anything, can it? Surrender is the act of opening that hand. It's a move from fear to trust, from resistance to receptivity. It's what makes us capable of not just giving, but, crucially, receiving.
But that is terrifying, right? I mean, the ego, that part of us that's so attached to that false self, it whispers in our ear that our anxious grip is the only thing holding our entire world together. It equates letting go with failure, with total and complete collapse. It tells us that we are the only thing standing between order and chaos.
So it's absolutely crucial to understand this. Spiritual surrender isn't about weakness or giving up. It's not passive resignation. No. It's a conscious, powerful act of giving over. It's about doing our part, acting with integrity, and then entrusting the final outcome to something larger than ourselves. It is a profound act of trust.
And this process, this act of surrender, it leads to this dismantling of the ego's fortress. Yeah, it's often painful, but it's the necessary preparation for a kind of spiritual rebirth.
Okay, think of it like this. First comes the demolition. Life just strips away the things we built our identity on. Then comes the clearing, and that's that uncomfortable, empty space where we have no idea what's next. But it's in that fertile void, on that cleared ground, that something truer and way more authentic can finally be built. Now, this phase can feel like being totally lost in a dark, unfamiliar forest. Our first instinct is to turn around and run back to the familiar territory of control. But the spiritual path, it often asks us to keep moving forward, into the unknown, trusting that the guide who's leading us through the darkness knows the way, even when we don't have a clue.
So what do we find on the other side of this really difficult journey? Well, this is the great paradox. In giving up our desperate grab for power, we find a much deeper, more resilient kind of strength.
Just look at this comparison here. The power that comes from the ego, it's brittle. It's fueled by anxiety, and it is absolutely exhausting to maintain.
But the power that comes from surrender, it's different. It's resilient. It's quiet. It's a peaceful strength that allows you to respond to life's challenges instead of just reacting to them out of fear.
This right here is the internal shift that changes everything. When we surrender, our inner dialogue moves from a place of resistance, why me? Why is this happening? To one of curiosity and openness. Okay, what is this here to teach me? That simple question, it dissolves so much of the struggle and opens the door to peace.
In this peace, it isn't dependent on having a perfectly ordered life. Not at all. It's a peace that comes from finding an anchor in something bigger than our circumstances. It's that profound relief of just resting in the knowledge that we don't have to have all the answers.
So how do we make this real in our day-to-day lives? Well, surrender isn't some one-time event. It's not a finish line you cross and you're done. It's a continuous, daily practice of choosing the open hand over the clenched fist.
And we can practice this in really small, everyday ways. Let someone else have the remote for once. Resist that powerful urge to win every single argument. Trust your partner to drive without your constant helpful advice from the passenger seat. These little acts of letting go, they're like spiritual exercises. They train the muscle of surrender for when the bigger challenges eventually arrive.
Now, this doesn't mean we stop caring or trying. Of course not. We can still work hard, we can love deeply, we can pursue our passions. The difference is we do it with a light heart, without that desperate, anxious attachment to how it all turns out. We do our part, and then we relax, knowing our worth isn't tied to the result. So, maybe the ultimate takeaway is this. The loss of control isn't some tragedy to be avoided at all costs. It's a liberation. It is the end of the exhausting pretense that we are in charge of the entire universe, and the beginning of a restful trust in the one who is. We are not in charge, but we are and always have been held.